My name's Roy Hodges, host of Shugyokai.org and writer on that very same site. Earlier I had a chance to talk to Bjorn Saw, from England, across the pond, over the way, across the Atlantic, and the United States as I'm in Washington State. So, there was a follow-up discussion that was actually recorded about a week ago from this recording. In that video we discussed many other topics and continued the relationship building that we have between each other and between organizations and between the backgrounds that we both share. There's many different topics that are discussed in addition to some commentary on deeply spiritual things, some items that are related to Aikido, and just general observations of society as a whole. If you're watching this video and you're a very advanced and sophisticated martial artist, try very closely to listen to the echo of words actually spoken in the video. It's in the speech. In fact, Kotodama comes out in various ways. The reason for the stilted language is because this is being created on the fly. This language was not prepared, this speech was not spoken, and it was not actually written down. What I'm actually sharing with you right now is actually being created right in the moment. So, the same with the video. In order to do that requires one to actually collect information relating to what's going on in the environment right now. Being able to track these things at once is part of Kikubari, Matsukaze, and a lot of other phenomena. So when listening to this video, pay close attention to the body language and the words spoken, and you may be able to see the Matsukaze effect that's actually influencing the language spoken therein. If that is able to be done and be able to be carried about through beyond the watching of this video, one may be able to see the effects of this in not only one's family and relationships, but also our relationships in the world and beyond it. So without any further ado, I present part 2 of the video of our introductions to each other between Bjorn Saw across the pond in the UK and myself here in the United States in Washington State. Not surprising. Here you go. Thank you. So, hi Bjorn.
Hi Roy.
How's it going?
Nice to see you. It's all good here. It's all good.
Yeah, last time we spoke, it was quite interesting. I was in a different frame of mind in that video. Yeah, it was intentional. Not really out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I think we can go anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really good. So Bjorn, so I a long time, not too long ago, but what was it, last year, I reached out to you just to say hello and introduce ourselves to each other. I found what you were doing online to be very fascinating and very interesting. And I really appreciated all the work you do to try to bring some of the spiritual aspect, which is very large and wide and vast, sort of back into the realm of Aikido. And I was really impressed by that. So that's why I originally reached out to you and then joined a couple calls and met a couple of the people that you work with. And I thought that was very interesting. And I found the group very respectful, very appreciative, warm and glowing. And that's why I reached out. So I really appreciate it.
No, thank you for doing so. And it was really nice to getting to know you more. And I haven't been acquainted to you or your work before, and not knowing your background or anything. But it was a breath of fresh air of getting to know you and find your passion for your work and for Aikido, and for me, more importantly, the spiritual aspect, which is really the main event, as I see it. And if we trust our Sensei, and if we do our own exploration, I think it lends itself to a fascinating topic to dialogue about.
Yeah. So I was originally I came up with a list of questions to ask you, and then I was like, what's a good demonstration of Aikido? Is we don't come with a script necessarily. So I was like, it's not quite winging it though, is it?
Well, I think no matter how we start with questions or without questions, I think it lends itself to you just light the fire. You might need a match, so you light the fire, and we see where it goes. Maybe it dies off.
What does the lighting the fire mean to you?
It means for me is to, well, also depends on who you're speaking with. If you meet them for the first time, if you know them, if me knowing you, the little I do now, I know enough that I can say, hey, let's start a forest fire. So in the sense that for me, it doesn't need to take time, and it doesn't have to be in a specific way. Like Aikido, maybe we need to do some warm-ups first.
Yeah, a little warm-up, right? I guess this is the warm-up.
Yeah. Yes, and but I think depending on context and depending on the people we speak with and depending on who you're acquainted with, I think we have to somehow get on the same page.
Yeah. So the audience out there, who is the audience of something when you're speaking and when you put together your work? Who are you speaking to? Who is your audience?
That's a really good question, because I've been thinking about that myself, and it was mainly two categories. So at first, I wanted to address the Aikido community that has an interest in the spiritual teachings of Sensei. I'm supposing then they would have a spiritual interest for their own self-observation, for their own path, and that would be prompted by or inspired by Sensei's writing, alongside all the other spiritual interests that are out there, which there are plenty of. But there was also a part of me thinking, I can't and I don't want to limit myself simply to Aikido people or to martial people. I want to reach out to people that has a burning interest in their heart to know what life is about, what spirit is about, no matter what background and no matter what stage in their life they are at.
So you mentioned two categories: the spiritual teachings of Sensei, and then is this is the more than the Aikido community number two?
Yeah, no, the first category was Aikido people, because
I see.
The first category is Aikido people with a vain hope that Aikido people would take interest or could be interested in the spiritual implications of Sensei's teachings. Simply because we have Sensei as our founder, regardless of style. So I thought if there is some interest for us to learn about the roots of Sensei, the roots of Aikido, then our dialogue could serve a purpose in that, to investigate that part.
What purpose would that be?
It would be to stoke the fire, as you call it. It would be to inspire one's own interest in what is maybe difficult to grasp at first sight, to help and to communicate and to feed off each other of what a spiritual interest implies and what it means for us, because a lot of the old teachings are archaic and old and difficult to understand unless you have a deep understanding of Japanese culture, history, etc. So it takes a long time to get into that. But the spiritual perspective is very simple and doesn't need to take time. So I'm trying to marry a perspective that we can hold, that we can share, that is available to us right now without any cultural, historical baggage attached to it. But we can also relate that perspective to the teachings of the past, whether they be Shinto, whether they be Buddhist, whether they be Christian. We can relate to it. That takes a little bit of digging. It takes a little bit of investigation, but we always come back to our own heart and our own passion and interest in that thing that we can't put our finger on, which is, the life questions. So right. Even if a person doesn't claim to have a spiritual interest, they still live life. And if you live life, if you are alive, there's no getting away from it. So you can always point back home. You can always point back home, no matter who you are. You only need a little bit of interest. That's all you need. That's the door opening. And you can enter them. There's a little bit of interest. The world is your oyster, as it were. But I realized that Aikido people are just like all of us, just people in general. So really I just love to meet people that have interest, whether that has been cultivated for years or if it's fresh. It doesn't really matter.
Interest. The word interest is very interesting to me because it literally means between to be. And I think that's very interesting when you have somebody that is like to be or not to be. And then interest means between to be. And I find that funny because I find that interesting.
Yeah.
So even right here, sipping this coffee, like next time I sip it, a little bit more consciousness between the sip, So I find that that's actually a very humble practice. It's like, oh, I didn't see that before. So Aikido people, beyond Aikido people, and you were talking about these life questions. Do you find? I find that it seems to be there's a competition over life questions and the answering of life questions. It's almost like a competitive spirit over answering life questions. Maybe it was easier when humanity was smaller and you had pockets of humans, and you had a very small little megaphone, or you didn't really have the internet where you could reach across the world, but you had a little, I think I have an idea, maybe the sun, maybe that's the ruler of life, maybe this place is the origin of the sun. I think that's interesting, right? You wake up in the morning, where else did the sun rise? Right where you woke up every time. So that's not surprising, origin of the sun. But do you find there's lots of different answers and questions and life questions in particular?
Absolutely. And actually, I do think they have always been not competing, but there's always been competing interests. I mean, I think the Buddha and Jesus, they all have to get in there, get their message in between all the other messages that was around at the time. And it's like, I wonder if they had dojo busting at that time.
Well, in the sutras, Gautama Buddha does visit other sects. Well, he doesn't exactly request it. He just shows up and just starts talking. In fact, he's done that with quite a few Brahmas in the story. So, oh, yes, go ahead.
That's actually really beautiful, because I remember it's beautiful just in his beginning days, where just after his big enlightenment, after his grand enlightenment, and he goes and spends time with this well-renowned sadhu ascetic sitting by the river, and he comes to him as his junior, and lives with him, and he lives very humbly with him for a few days, maybe a few weeks, and suddenly the renowned sage, who has thousands of followers, there's a beautiful story, the whole story, but it comes to pass that he realized, my God, this is the man who knows, he has realized something that I have not. And he bows down to the Buddha and says, I'm leaving my fire worship, I'm leaving all this stuff, I'm going with him. And he tells all his followers, sorry guys, I'm going with him. They all say, okay, fine, we're going to shave off our rasta hair, and we're going to go and follow him too. So suddenly Buddha's community was already filled with thousands of followers, simply because of that acknowledgement. And that's what I think is so beautiful, because we can see this in the world in different fields, but we can also see this in Aikido. When we acknowledge skill, when we acknowledge wisdom, knowledge, then we are humbled. We give credit where credit is due, as it were. And then we bow down. We stand under. We understand. And we say, well, you're my guide.
It's interesting because you have this. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's
just because you're like this standing. You have this statue on this shelf back up here. I can't help but to notice this guy standing over your head.
Yeah,
holding spears. Are those spears?
Yeah, my African warrior.
Look at that. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's an ebony from Africa.
Wow, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it came from my grandfather. He was a Baptist minister in 1920s in French Congo.
Wow.
Teaching Swedish Baptist songs to the villagers.
Wow. Did he retain friendships with the villagers?
They lived there for a year and a half until my grandmother got malaria and they had to be shipped home. They went home. She gave birth to my father, their first child down there, my father's elder sister. But then they came home. Oh, wow. But through their mission there, some of their people they met down there actually came to visit them in Sweden, which is a beautiful story in themselves, and spent time, got landlocked in Sweden during the war. Couldn't go back because the war broke out, the World War II.
Yeah, that's difficult times, wars.
Yeah. But just to put that into perspective, because recently I just been trying to learn more about Sensei's background and the Shinto and the shamanistic background, and knowing that that is a living tradition in Christianity as well. Mm-hmm. Because this African man who was in Sweden, who was a village chief's son, couldn't, there was no post, there was no telegraph, there was nothing, there could be no contact from the deepest part of Congo, deepest part of Africa. So during their Christian seances, they had a spoken word directly from the chief of the tribe back in Congo, coming out in tongues from the person sitting next to him. Oh, so it's like, whoa, what's going on?
Fascinating. Wow.
Yeah, so there's so much.
This is in your family lineage. This
is
deep
my
spiritual interest.
Yeah, they were Baptist. They were Swedish Baptists.
Wow.
But my parents didn't adopt that. That was my grandparents' generation.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I was young, I got exposed to Baptists and Methodists, and Mormon, so many different churches I got exposed to briefly. I think they're called church hoppers. I remember this song about church hopping. I can't remember who sang this song a long time ago. My sister found it and she's like, listen to this. And it's like a song about church hoppers. And it was like, oh yeah, I don't want to do that. Shopping cart Christianity, I think was in the song or something like that too, or something like that. Oh, speaking of, yeah, when I was in this service, somebody, I think he was a priest or something. I can't remember his story, but he gave me his personal copy of the Philokalia, the first volume, and I remember reading that so much when I was in the military. It was very helpful actually. And then, of course, when I got into the dojo, I actually bought the rest of the set and found them very helpful. I don't know if you've ever read any of the Philokalia or sayings of the Desert Fathers, but it's very
I got them all right down here.
Yeah, they're pretty well used over in that corner.
I love I think that's part of the passion, to try to relate to people that there's so much wisdom that can be found just studying and reading about it. There's so much beauty to be found in these old books, whether you choose a Buddhist path or a Christian path, or take a little bit of everything. There's so much knowledge and wisdom and deep, profound mystery that we can access today. And that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Makes absolute sense. It's really fun to just crack open any one of the books and just pick a page at random and just dive right in. However, I realize now that even when I pick it up and open a page at random, it doesn't seem random anymore. But that might be bias or some weird cognitive effect going on in the brain. But it is very interesting nonetheless. Do you find that I personally find that Aikido helps not to force Aikido, however, that is the commonality. But I find that Aikido practice really helps all spirituality. Like you open a Bible, read the parts of the Bible, it's more illuminated, it feels like. I don't know if that's just a personal thing or if that comes through the Aikido, but I really believe it comes through Aikido practice. Like open up a Christian text, open up Philokalia, open up Buddhist suttas, or Kojiki Dan, or Nihonji, read these documents. They all seem very illuminating. So like, wow. And it seems like good practice of Aikido somehow is correlated to like this ability to illuminate, well, let's just go at it, language itself, linguistics, like syntax and speech, and adjust the variations of speech. I used to be very embarrassed to slow down speech, because in some of the communities I was in, rapid speech is really important, getting things done. It's got to get done. You got revenue, time is money. It's very interesting. However, time is money, even going slower now. See, even Siri agrees, and thought I started speaking to Siri, and now it's actually just recording everything I'm saying right now. It's actually doing a pretty good job on the screen. Now it's all messed up. There it goes. She's not sure she understands. Well, that's not surprising. Yeah, it does seem like Aikido helps illuminate any spiritual practice. What do you think?
Well, I don't think necessarily. Well, I do think Aikido is a great vehicle, but I do believe that the impetus probably comes from deep within you and deep within me. Now I think because I've done it since I was a kid, and I did it because I just loved it. It was just so much fun. but in one way, the practice and the ritual involved with sitting in seisa and bowing, and the stillness that is sitting still, without having been told what it means or anything, it was probably good, because it was not a religious practice. It was nothing, but we sit still and we sit beautifully and we go quiet. And I think physiologically, that has just an impact on you. Just to slow down and take a moment, that has a direct effect upon you. And I think Aikido, or Aikido without the competitive mindset that when you get out of your seat, you have to compete, which I think distorts the calmness. So when we step out from seisa and we practice and we bow to each other and we practice congenitally, we practice with mutual intent and respect and love, if you may. Are you still with me?
Mm-hmm.
You're sitting very still, so I thought you froze. No. But, I think in that sense, Aikido lends itself to get you in touch with yourself, whether you are conscious of it or not. Now, I think that in one way, the practice completely fitted what my heart were already loving. So it was a practice that did fit. And so I think the practice for me only, it enhanced what I already knew to be true.
Mm.
And then when one grew up and be more conscious of it, then I could actively make my practice to be in line with the deepest part of myself and the way I view relationship and the way I view engagement and the way I view Aikido.
Mm. One time I asked Sensei, that's interesting, because one time I asked Sensei, it was a couple years ago, Sensei, is this Aikido? And he's like, no. It's like, then what is Aikido? And he walked to the top of this little platform into the house, and he's looking onto the mat, and he goes, and people are practicing, and he goes, this is Aikido. This is Aikido. Okay, Sensei, then what's this? And I'm pointing at his jacket, and he looks at it and he goes, these are just clothes. And beautiful, these are just clothes. Ever since then, it became more beautiful.
Was he wearing the gi?
Oh no, he had clothes that he used to make. He makes these very big jackets, and like different material, and they're very intricate and very beautiful. And he's made many, actually, and he makes them by hand. Well, he historically has made them by hand with big, huge needles, and no thimble, and he's just stitching through jean material, denim. No thimble. He's just like putting it right through the fabric, and it's always been very interesting that he could do that. So I really respect and the whole concept of these are just clothes, for me ties back to even early readings in the Kojiki. Susanoo no Mikoto coming in, throwing the flayed horse into the room, right? But what did the lady in there, what was she doing? She was weaving.
Yeah.
You think about fabric, just fabric, and the status that fabrics exude in society to create a hierarchy. You know, this person is well dressed. Well dressed person. You know, this is amazing. Must be a gift. You know, well, just the concept of weaving as a gift. So I find those stories interesting, though.
Oh, that I think. I mean, that's a whole topic itself. The weaving of the fabric of the universe. I mean, I think it's so beautiful because it's. I think that's a profound beauty to speak about the weaving quality and what it means to be shrouded, and through the ages, knowing people been having different you like the multicolored jacket of one of the 12 of the Jewish tribe. He had a multicolored jacket for a king, fully covering him as a king's dress, which is just divine. It's just divine qualities that are just beautiful to read about, how you imbue the qualities and as if putting on a garment.
Yes.
So that's gorgeous. And those stories, I think part of those stories that it belongs to Japanese mythology have deep significance and deep meaning if we dare to study and tap into them and speak about them with people that have deep knowledge, people that have direct experience.
Yeah.
And that's part of my wanting to find people that has. Many people have different parts of the puzzle, and you bring a little bit in from everywhere, and then you lay the puzzle out, and it just becomes this beautiful.
Lately, I've been exploring this concept of what if the pieces are malleable, right? What if we had a malleable puzzle piece? It's like a wild card, you know. This is a good Aiki. Good Aiki. Yeah. Very good Aiki can fit.
But then every card, every puzzle piece becomes malleable.
Exactly.
Right. Beautiful. It's just gorgeous. And you know what I just before we got on here, I read something that you just had posted on your site, and not that I remember the whole thing, but there was one word that I love, and that's going to probably, maybe it's going to take us completely somewhere else. So before I ask you about it, I want to just say about. I don't know if it ties in, but you spoke about it's not about the velocity. No, it's about the acceleration.
Yes, it's the acceleration. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think you were speaking about it in the sense of learning, but I love that whole expression of, that ties it back to, because velocity and acceleration for me has to do with time. And why is the puzzle? Why are the pieces of the puzzle why are they metaphoric? Why are they changing? Because of time. Because you're not static. Everything is completely moving all the time.
Yeah.
So nothing can be static.
Yeah. Change is time.
Yeah.
Change is time.
And that's beautiful, because I think you drew it back to learning. And now I think about learning in Aikido sense, and I'm kind of brought up with Iwama system and the old way of saying, well, everybody says you should rather do one cut properly than 1,000 cuts poorly, but they still advocate to do 1,000 cuts properly. But there was one point when I realized I just do one cut. That's fine. I had a friend actually. It was quite funny. Oh yeah, I got to tell that story before I continue because it's worth telling. So I had this young Swedish friend who used to come to Iwama once or twice, and I had been there for a while, and I loved him. He was a lovely guy, but he was like 10, 15 years younger than me, but we got along really well, and he had this independence of spirit, and really young and strong and pliable, and got his Aikido just improved fast, really fast. And when he first came to Iwama, we used to hit the tire with the Tanren Uchi strike, and he said, that's for cavemen. I don't do that stuff. so we just looked at him. It's like, oh, that's a bit arrogant to say that, but okay, fine. He can do his way. So then 1 week, 2 weeks later, he goes out there. He takes the Suburi Bokken and he goes out there and look at him and says, you're going to strike the Tanren? And he goes out. He doesn't answer me. He goes out and he strikes it once. And then he goes in and puts the Bokken back and said, okay, that's fine. I've done it. Anyway, that's a bit silly story. But do
you think, to interrupt, do you think, you see how that was done? To interrupt changes the outcome potentially. So do you think if you hadn't said anything, do you think you would have kept striking the tire more than one time?
No.
No.
No, that was him.
Said with the same response as, no, that's for cavemen. So that's funny.
No, but I think in regards to learning, there was a point when I realized, because we kept doing the same thing. Yeah, we kept doing the same thing. We keep doing it, we keep doing it, and it's beautiful practice. But there was one point of saying, well, if I'm going to improve my EQ, I better not do it the same way I did it the last time.
Yeah.
I better not do it exactly the same, because I haven't improved it. I just been copying it and doing it again.
Yeah.
And my God, I can do that forever. So I have to change it. So I was like, okay, so I got to change my technique every time I do it. In order to change it, I have to change it. And that was sort of that was beautiful, because then it became this flowing thing.
Yeah.
This flowing, this movable puzzle.
There's your breaking. That's your break. Lucky break, right? That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
This is a ha ha. Bad joke. Sensei goes, Roy, you tell bad joke, your reputation goes down. So don't tell bad joke. Oh, he hit me in the head once for a bad joke. I have a friend that witnessed it. It was really funny. No bad joke.
Is his jokes good?
Sensei's jokes? Well, of course they are. Because Sensei's jokes always point to some lesson or truth that's very helpful. Actually, he tells silly jokes. Sometimes they're not jokes. Sometimes they're just funny stories. Sensei, did old Sensei like candy? Ho 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 ho! Old Sensei loved candy. It was funny with his tea. He liked candy and tea. That's what Sensei said. It's funny. Sensei, did you ever go shopping with old Sensei? No. The family went shopping. Old Sensei's son and family did the grocery shopping, and I always thought that was really sweet. This intimate exposure to this great teacher that we all know and respect. So yeah, it's really cool. Yeah. What were we talking about?
Velocity.
Yeah, velocity. Yeah, velocity, and there's different types of velocity. And there's different kinds of acceleration. Torque is very important in martial arts.
Yeah.
Torque. the concept of torque, you know, that's a very interesting concept, because instantaneous torque is what electric vehicles are known by. And then suddenly it seems like, how the heck did he get to instantaneous torque in electric vehicles? Well, it's very related to martial arts, because basically a lot of martial artists seem to be in the search for instantaneous torque, right? Especially with this, you know, static practice, you know, push my arm. Yeah, you're looking for instantaneous torque. It's very interesting.
Yes, this is, I think, for me, I hope we speak about the same thing, but for me, that part of Aikido is something I think I'm just beginning to learn about. Just beginning to learn about.
Yeah.
And that's only because I met another teacher, but so that in itself is fascinating for Aikidoka, for Aikido people, or martial art people, or Budo people. How to use your body.
Yeah. It's very fascinating, isn't it?
But in the spiritual sense, as I see it, in the instantaneousness of the velocity that is instantaneous, in what I would, maybe it's not correct to, I don't need to use it, but to refer back to Masakatsu Agatsu, I don't know the full phrase.
Katsuhabi.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, quick victory.
Yes, and I think I remember actually reading a long time ago that there is this old wisdom teaching in Japan that when you open the shoji, the sunlight streams in instantaneously. As you open the shoji, it streams in. It's like that. But I think I read something. I tried to look for it, but I couldn't find it. But I think also say it says something like that. No, your sunshine has to be there before you even open the soji. Even before you open the soji, it has to be there.
Yeah.
And yeah, and that is sort of like, that's, you know, that's what I'm talking about. That's what we want to speak about. We don't want to speak about the process of opening and letting the sun in. We want to have that instantaneousness that takes away the time factor. And that's go with really where I are talking to my friends that I have these dialogues with. We are trying, and we want, and we are speaking from the present conscious awareness. That is the instantaneous understanding. There's a spark, like we said in the beginning. We just need a spark. We need an interest to bring about something that is quite a mystery, hidden, and will always remain a mystery, and will always remain hidden. And that's the kind of the fascinating play between knowing and not knowing, and having the trust and the wanting to go there, as it were. And then
to go. I think that maybe that concept of to go, like what you were just talking about, landing on to go. It's interesting because Bu, the character for Bu, is the spear, you know, and then you have a foot, which it's interesting, some of the discussions about the etymology of the character Bu, and you know, it means stop spear, it doesn't mean stop spear. Well, actually, if you look at the character for foot in Chinese culture and the kanji for foot, it does mean to stop, actually. Like, you know, even though it's a character for foot, what does a foot do? It stomps on, you know, plants. And what happens when a lot of animals stomp on plants in the forest? They leave a trail, right? It's clear, you know, and that's where the character for Michi or Do comes, right? So Michi is the path that's left from the animals that used to walk in the woods, and now the humans walk on that trail. And why did they follow the animals? Well, the animals know where the water is, and they also congregate around watering holes, which makes it easier for the humans to find the animals. So I think it's quite fascinating and joyous that this capacity even to comprehend that etymology of the character for Michi or way, there's a great appreciation for the capacity to understand the etymology of the characters in the languages it's written. And how did I get on that concept was just this concept of go, and to bring it back to this concept of bu, right? So you made a comment earlier, that the video or the connection may have froze. And I feel that good Budo practitioners are able to apply martial awareness within, quote, within, and that's a whole topic for discussion, entirely different from this one, but within the frame of the body, how to apply the principle of Bu to arrive at peace. Here, real peace. Yeah. And it's like a brake in have you ever driven an electric vehicle?
No.
So when you step on the brake in the electric vehicle, there's this thing called, there's this regenerative power. So it's not all just a brake, but it's using some of the slowing down to drive, a generator, which puts power back into the battery. And on early electric vehicles, there used to be this little lag. I used to go push the brake, but it wasn't instantaneous. There's that instantaneous again. There'd be this lag between pressing the brake and then the regenerator kicking on and then bleeding off some of the power and velocity. There's the velocity from the vehicle, which brings about deceleration. But there was this lag. And as a meditator, you realize that over time, putting those two concepts together, it's like, oh yeah, it's almost like meditation. There's this lag from meditation. And it's like, you got to be patient a bit because there's this little lag in Bu with martial arts when it applies to the body. And I think for some, that lag might be 40 years or it might be 60 or 80 years before that regenerative break starts working in the practice of martial arts, where you can find peace. And I think that right now it's being practiced in the body. And I think that, it's like, oh, there's a little anxiety over there. This goes away. How do you practice that in front of people? It used to be nerve-wracking, but now it's less so.
The way I feel in the practice, how that is imparted to me, is because in Iwama we start from basic Kihon. Everything is very static and still. Grab my arm. When they grab my arm and they squeeze hard, I relax.
Yes.
It's like, it's touch. For me, that's what I love the Aikido about, is the touch. It makes me relax. And it settles, somehow it settles me. So and that touch can come from me. So when I touch something, that settles me. And that it lends itself to when you sit down, you touch when sitting down. You simply through touch. Simply through touch. When someone is distressed, you put the hand on their shoulder. How is that possible? This is a universal thing. They said, don't worry. And the body goes.
Yeah. Is it?
What is that about?
Yeah. Psychology has studied that, that effect,
That's beautiful.
Yeah, stimulus overriding or something like that.
And Aikido is all stimuli, isn't it?
Well, I don't think we have a choice in that matter, really.
And that's so beautiful, because as long as we deal with the other as opposing us and we're trying to hold them away, we're not allowing the touch.
Yeah.
So we're not
How
allowing.
do we touch on this video?
What video?
This one.
Oh, I think we're. Well, I feel the touch here.
You're like, combate!
No, my chair is very comfortable. My chair is very comfortable. I just took my socks off. I feel very comfortable.
Yeah. You're like, yeah, you kick your feet up. Yeah. It's like after you practice. This
but
is.
There's a good lesson I learned in Iwama, and it wasn't because of Iwama, but it was after I had met my spiritual teacher, mentor, guru. I went to Iwama. I had spent 5 weeks with him, and then I was on my way to Iwama to spend a year. And my life's changed meeting my spiritual mentor. And so I came fresh to Iwama, completely, in one way, turned inside out. And I was now in Iwama, which meant I had time on my hands to practice, to live close to nature, to go to the waterfall, to go up the mountain. I had all this time to practice and just do this. This is all we did for 1 year. So I went, there's a beautiful bicycle ride distance, maybe 25 minutes, half an hour bicycle ride. And you take through the rice paddies in the countryside, back behind a small mountain. There's a small waterfall next to a Shugyokai, small little shrine temple. And they built out these 2 stone faucets where the water comes down, and you can stand and do misogi practice underneath it. And for us, it was a beautiful cold shower in the hot summer months of Japan. So it was just absolutely wonderful. So I had taken a shower there. I was by myself. It's a beautiful forest around. So it's like the last village has ended. The last rice paddies has ended by the ensuing mountainside that is completely forested. And there is a small path into the forest that I followed just to explore a little bit. And I walked in a little bit. I found a little bit of a clearing. So I sat down because everything was so relaxed. I had done my morning practice. I'd done my misogi practice. I'd done this. And I sat down in this forest that was so quiet and so still. And I think I was like contemplating, if everything is self-evident, what is this idea about ignorance and delusion and misconception from? Where does that come into the wholeness of everything that is perfect as it is? And I kind of think about these things. And so I was sitting in this forest clearing, and a mist came through the forest trees, through the trees, and drifted across the clearing, in between the trees, and it just for a moment it covered some of the scenery I saw. So it flowed very, very, very thin, but it did cover some of what I saw. And then I go, oh my God, this is so beautiful. Because though the mist cover the trees, it doesn't change. The mist is part of the nature, it's part of everything that's going on. Though for a moment something might be covered, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't change a thing. It's part and parcel of the changing landscape that's going on. So if there's something that is not seen, that's fine. That's just the mist drifting through the forest. That's just part of nature. And it was sort of like, that is so gorgeous. I just need to sit here, and everything is self-revealed. Everything is self-revealed. And so in that sense, whatever niggle I have, whatever my mind, whatever side I wake up on, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at any time. It doesn't matter. So, and I think that's partly, they say, go and spend time in nature. So yes.
And you do spend time in nature, right? You're a professional, right?
You mean gardener?
Yes.
Yeah, but that's not spending time in nature, is it? That's
Well,
it's outside work. It's manual labor outside. So I do that. I haven't done it for a long time now because of lockdown, because of COVID. But we live in the countryside. You have to come and visit. We live in a beautiful place. We have fields and forests right next to us. So yeah, we live in a beautiful part of England here.
Yeah, the photos that I've seen that you have posted have been gorgeous. They're really, really gorgeous. Yeah. I find that this kind of communication comes out of that stillness practice.
Yeah.
The fog does seem to clear as a result. It's not intentional, you're not going to clear the fog. It's sort of like, I think Vasiliev once even had this expression, is like, don't defend the air around you. And I always love that expression from Vasiliev, don't defend the air around you. And I took that to heart in Aikido practice, actually. I don't need to reach for this thing that's going to come to me. It's going to come to you. You don't need to reach for it. It's just like, whoop, it just goes right beside now. But one time I got a retina dislocated as a result of that, but next time it didn't happen. That's why I wear glasses now. But it's a good practice. Yeah, that could segue into a very interesting story. However, I think what's more valuable to share right now and ask, the gardening. Yes, the gardening. Yeah, getting into the earth and working with the earth. That's well, I remember when I heard that you did this professionally, I was like, that makes sense.
It's actually not. It's not my trained profession.
Oh yes, what is your trained profession?
I haven't done it for years and years, but I was a nurse's aide in Sweden for 15 years. And that was for me my coming of age, growing up, learning how to take care of other people. So I was more or less working for 15 years in the neurosurgery or neurology wards, dealing with the people that are much worse off than I am, that I ever can be. So that was a wonderful experience of learning how to relate to people that are dying, but are also very sick, and how to be with them. And I never have difficulty doing that. It was always beautiful. It's always very, very beautiful. But what I appreciate about it is that it brings out the sincerity in people when they're very ill. They don't have time for bullshit. So then everything is heartfelt and it's beautiful. And but when I came to England and when I worked in London, I did work part-time as a gardener, help, like a gardening hand. And then I was offered. No, I actually did work in London first as a healthcare assistant, as a nurse's aide. But then I was offered a gardening job that paid much better, 3 times as much as. Thank you. So then I was very lucky off while I was living in London. But now, since moving out to the countryside 4 years ago, it's very different. But that's a different story. But what are you saying? I think is that part of, for me, like Aikido is manual labor. You practice, you touch, you work out, you engage, and that is what working outside is too. So
it is. Ian, Ian, who lives here and partners with him, and Galen. Ian loves gardening. He loves to be out in the dirt. We do vegetables. We've got lettuce beds out there right now. It's just really neat to be able to grow your own food, isn't it? And did you grow your own food?
No, see, I'm not that. I'd rather go and buy it.
Oh yeah.
No.
Sensei one time made a joke. There's the joke. See, I just had to wait for it, and here it is. Sensei one time in class, he's like, and old students of Sensei know this, but he goes, Sensei make food. It's easy. I reach down into my pocket, I pull out, my wallet, and then, I make food. But, in the karmic sense, kama vipaka, you food was made. It's like, there it is. What an interesting perspective. However, I think it's true. Gardening, that's neat to hear that you garden. And that you're a nurse's aide in the past, and that you did that. That's really fascinating. My mom and my sister were nurses and worked on skilled units in facilities, and very tough environment. So a lot of respect for that. That's A, not easy, and B, you do work with the sick and the dying.
Actually, I think for me that was kind of the sila practice, the practice that we all need to have. But I don't see it as a practice, but I think it's almost like a requirement that everybody should go through to be able to take care of our loved ones, our next one. I think it's super important that people learn to do that. And but it's so, what do you call it? It's reciprocal. It's so reciprocal. It's a relationship. It's like Aikido. It's a relationship, and that's what I love about what we are talking about. It's a relationship. The spiritual path is a path of relationship. It's not the journey. We might think so. It's this heroic solo journey of the warrior. It's not. It's a communal path we all trod. And I remember spending time in Thailand, and I visited some monasteries to spend time and doing Buddhist practice in monasteries. And the practice there is walking meditation in the evening. So we do the meditation, and then beautiful in the forest, you walk. I was in this forest, and you walk. Actually, you walk in a group. You walk with the monks, and you walk after them, and then you just walk around the meditation hall in the night, in the evening when it's dark in the jungle, and the only thing you see is the back legs of the monk in front of you, the feet, and you just walk, and it hits you. It's like 2,000 years of history I'm seeing here, walking down the path, and it's like, and the relation that we all walk this path, so many has walked this path, so many will walk this path, and to make it into an individual thing is like, come on, it's all relational. It's all relational.
Yeah.
And also the spark comes when you meet. So that's what I love about these meetings, is because that's when it happens. That's when the change happens. Yeah. That's when the spark hit, what do you call it? The metal hits the flint or something like
that. Flint and stone. Yeah.
Husband and wife. No.
That does happen, right? Yeah. Take it off the mat. Because I remember Sensei, real Aikido, not on the mat. Real Aikido, not on the mat. It's very true. Very true. Very, very, very true. So this is a good discussion. Discuss means to shake out.
Oh, that's beautiful. I just been reading about that in the old Kojiki, in the old Shinto you shake the soul.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Sensei one time he comes out, it was in the afternoon, there weren't many people in the dojo, and Sensei comes out of the house, and he does that periodically through the day back then. He'd come out of the house, you know, and he just dropped a gem. He goes, you know, sometime you need to reach down and shake up. And he's like down in the, you know, you need to just shake it. And then he goes back into the house, and then he shuts the door. And that's all he had to say. So definitely an iconoclast in that sense, but it's very useful, right? That is iconoclastic.
It's very beautiful because it's kind of a natural, you know, this natural reaction you have in the body sometimes, and you go, yeah. It just comes on, and it's kind of like shakes the cobwebs free, and you go, yeah. And it's like, yeah, this is it. You know, you got to, you know, shake that right.
You gotta shake it out. You know, when you first step in that cold water in that waterfall, right? Right? That instantaneous entry and that instantaneous change once that cold water hits. It's a very interesting moment. Everything after that is going to override the senses and forget what that first moment touching that cold water was like. Very interesting. Say no more, say no more. Now to be able to do that without the cold water.
Yes, and that's what I think dialogue is for. Spiritual dialogue is exactly for. That's the purpose and reason behind it.
Yeah, transmission.
Yeah.
Sharing, transmission.
And if you can do that also in Aikido, that is just beautiful.
It is. Very beautiful. However, make sure that people have some spiritual autonomy, right? Ensure an environment for spiritual autonomy. Yeah. Different people come to practice for different reasons. It's one of the rules at the dojo, or in actually all the ASU dojos. Different people practice for different reasons. So some come to impress their girlfriends.
Yeah.
Or boyfriends, maybe.
But doesn't that, you know, that's part of the practice, that path. If they stay around long enough, that is, you know, that what hopefully would reveal itself to be essential.
Well, that would be interesting. I mean, if we're practicing Aikido, then it's about Aiki, and that can manifest or de-manifest. Actually, that's the other side of the eye. You know, it's Aiki. You should be able to practice Aiki anywhere you go. You know, regardless if it's pushing a spade into the earth, and you know, using that instantaneous co-contraction to generate torque to plunge that spade into the earth. Interesting. You know, or to relax and pull that spade back out of the earth in such a way that requires, you know, minimum amount of effort by not pushing against the side walls of the earth that you just dug, creating increased friction. You know, that is Aiki, right? In why you should go and really dig in the dirt. Like, go do it. There's a lot of lessons in that. And I think somebody such as yourself has probably a great appreciation because you've done that in your life. And I think that's very fascinating and makes sense why I'm on this call with you right now. Can't make this stuff up. Bjorn, this is a very fascinating life. People are beautiful.
Yes. It's extraordinary.
Yeah, and to think that it just to think that this is it. This is the real gem. This is the real gem. Life. That's the real gem. It really is. It really, really is. Don't waste it. Anyway, so on another note, wow, that's pretty fascinating. It's really neat to hear that you did nursing for such a long amount of time. That's really nice. It's really nice. I've never heard that before. That was really good to hear. Are the sparks lighting a fire?
Always.
One of my staff members at my last company, he just sent me this message. Actually, he didn't just send it. That would be a lie if it's intentionally told, now that I remember. He sent me this message. I miss our walks. It's like, it's pretty funny. I miss our walks. It's like every time I talk to you, it's like my brain is working till like 6 a.m. and I can't sleep. It's like, I don't know if that's good for productivity. I'm like, oh, okay, that's a good idea.
The power of being together.
Yeah, in small doses. This is like throw a little bit of octane boost in the automobile engine. It's like, but too much octane boost, you'll ruin the engine. Watch out.
I don't know, because just being in the vicinity.
Yeah.
Just being in the vicinity is, for me, is like, because when you are with people, when there's this autonomy that you speak about, and there's so much beauty in just sharing the space, and because you're sharing the mystery, and if you speak, if you communicate, that is what you want to communicate. That's all my interest is. My interest is not really in gardening. Gardening is good, it's fun, and it is being outside is great, but being with people, being with others, in the dojo, but in the heart sense, in the beautiful sense of autonomy and communion that we share, that's just gorgeous. So, and to share one's interest with other people, even though there's like the hardcore interest that we can share, then you have your background, knowledge and skill and everything you have that will inform me if I want to know more, and that's just wonderful. And every single person have a whole experience behind themselves that they share with me, and it's so rich. It's so rich. Just being in the room with another person, I get to share who they are, and it's so rich.
Sensei once. So rich. Go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted.
I think because if we isolate ourselves and we think we are just us, you only have one life. And if that life is a bit full of hardships, it's not, it's tough. But if you see that you are partaking in everybody's lives, and when you're around them, you get to, you share, you're part of that life story, and everything they know and everything they know, and their knowledge. It's so enriching. But not only you, but your family and your ancestors and everything back also. Everything, it's multi-dimensional. It's so full.
Yeah.
So in one sense, I don't need to be anything special at all, because I have you all around. I have everyone else putting their bits in, and we got 6 billion expressions, and they keep coming.
Yeah. There's so many, and all those telescopes looking out and going, this place is pretty special.
Yes, and then, but I think this is so beautiful because just being able to share one life story with another life story, and somehow there is this intermingling of life stories going on, and that's just beautiful too.
If you could, what would you like to see the Aikido community emerge toward?
Well, I do think there is a lot of beauty in a lot of the Aikido out there. I do think there's. I just wish there's. Because I think there's a culture of keeping things to oneself, keeping things, not to dare to speak out your deepest desires, your deepest understanding. I wish there would be actually I'm addressing that to people. Don't be afraid to speak your heart about these things, because there are answers to all of these hard questions that we have, and there's such an ease to reach people now, like this, for example, across continents. It's so easy to communicate with people, and so there's no reason for us to keep things private, secret, or in that sense. I think, take the lid off and open up. But it also comes down to, I think we have to take that autonomy and that interest in ourselves to go and seek and find and study and learn.
And what makes a question hard?
Only if you don't pursue it.
So a soft question is a question you pursue?
What do you mean by soft question?
Well, the hard question, you said hard questions. So if there's hard questions, then that must mean there's soft questions. So I'm curious about what makes a question hard.
Oh, no, maybe the wrong choice of words. I can't even recall how I said it, but I find that when I look to see if there are people out there sharing some kind of the same interest and all that, I find these people. I find them. I mean, we met, and that was wonderful. I meet other people that share interest, and they have so much experience, and I learned so much from them. And that has always been the way. I've always been finding these wonderful people to learn from. And I think people know this. People do that on their own. Everybody's expanding their way. And actually, I don't see a problem in the Aikido community. I don't think we should all hold hands and some kind of gathering the same dojo. I don't believe in that.
Not carrying those spears around, that's going to happen.
That's just barbecue sticks. But everybody has, different paths and stuff like that. I think we all can just pursue our path wholeheartedly and encourage other people to do that likewise. And because Aikido has a very singular background in all Sensei, it is kind of interesting that actually in this day and age, we can come to a very thorough understanding of what he was about and what he understood. I think we can come to very clear, comprehensive understanding within the Aikido community. It doesn't have to be speculations about it any longer. We actually can point to it, and we can point to people that knows, and we can learn about it ourselves through direct experience. So I think the Aikido community has a good future ahead. This next 10 years, because there's so much good understanding out there that it has only come to light in the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is like, wow, about time. Because Aikido has been around now for a bit.
Quite billions and billions of years. If you're gonna drink the Kool-Aid, drink the Kool-Aid, right? Remember that shopping cart Christianity from earlier?
Yeah.
Drink the Kool-Aid. Well, I have drank the Kool-Aid, and I'm glad it's not sweet. Dead silence. Crickets. Man, we had crickets in the dojo. Yeah. We'd have crickets. Sometimes the jumping ones. Have you ever seen the jumping crickets?
No.
Like spider crickets, I think some people call them. They look like spiders, these crickets in DC.
I don't know them.
These crickets could jump way higher than normal crickets. 11:22.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the clock here.
Me too.
I'm realizing I got 8 minutes to class.
Yeah. So, thank you very much. There's a lot of content here, and it's nice to talk to you. Actually, I think it was just more valuable to just talk.
I think, Roy, we have a lot to talk about. I think we probably can go on all night. But
oh my goodness, I could not. I don't know about you, but
I usually sit up till I can't keep my head up.
That's the meditation. I need time to go sit and meditate. I wouldn't be talking.
But that's why we fall silent from time to time.
Yeah, it is, and it happens on the mat too, and that's where the good practice comes in.
Yeah.
To borrow from Christianity. Anyway, it's really nice to see you, and I hope you have a lovely evening, and say hello to your friends and everybody.
I will. Thank you, Roy. Till next time.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you.